Hey, good afternoon, Roto Grinders, and welcome to the DraftKings GPP Lineup Build Show. I'm your host, Chris Jimino, and we are going to be taking you through our minds as we build GPP rosters for the upcoming slate in Week 6 in the NFL for DraftKings.com. And joining me to help me do that, we have two of the best in the business, starting with Mr. Stevie TPFL. Stevie, what's going on?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well. Got power back. Have internet again. Filled the fridge up a little bit last night, and ready to talk some football. I love this slate. I think it's a great slate, but I think we need to give a little bit of congrats to our other co-host here, like taking down the Fantasy Aces tournament last week, and just had a massive team over there.
Yeah, Grant, congratulations, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, felt pretty good there. It was an all-around great weekend. Took down the Aces GPP, swept the other sites, and I found a bar with $1 Jello shots.
Oh, snap.
I mean, it's all coming up, Grant, at this point in time. I mean, everything is going your way. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick will come through at some point too. I mean, you never know. I mean, it's just absolutely going to happen for you. And once again, seriously, congratulations. So that's awesome. Are you taking down a GPP on Fantasy Aces? I know you play on a lot of different sites, and it's good to see one of the good guys take it down for Team GPP. So once again, guys, this is what we're doing on the show. We're going to actually build some rosters on DraftKings. We're going to take a look at some of our favorite plays for the week. On this Wednesday, it's early, but we'll still have some good ideas. We've done a lot of research already. We're going to continue to grind throughout the week. But, Stevie, what's your take so far on the Week 6 slate as you see it from a roster construction standpoint?
I love it. Cash games, I think it's a good week to pay up at quarterback, running back, save some money at wide receiver with some of these values. Pay attention to wide receiver cornerback matchups when, that data starts coming out is going to be huge this week because we just have so many running backs in just such good positions that you're going to need a lot of points from your running backs this week. So I think other people are going to make the mistakes of going down at running back, and I think this is a week to pay up in cash. But with that said, for tournaments, maybe finding some mid-range value that has some upside is going to be the way to attack a tournament this week for running backs. So we're going to talk about all that stuff, obviously. And shout out to us, man. We scored 190 points with one of our lineups last week with Steve Smith and CJ Anderson. So we were 2 players away from having a massive week with one of our lineups last week.
Yeah, that's a really good showing, for putting together lineups on a Wednesday. So, I mean, I'm really happy to see that we're putting out some good information for the people. Grant, do you have any takes on this week that you want to share before we get started?
I've never been more sure of anything than I am on who I'm playing this week and never been more confused on who to play.
Yep, so that's going to be interesting to hear who we come up with here on the show as a result of that particular tidbit of information. So without further ado, let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right.
So go ahead, Stevie. Give us something to start this lineup with here. It's a clean slate. We can go anywhere we want. Give us your play for week number 6.
All right, well, let's start at quarterback. That's what we usually do. We'll start at quarterback, and a lot of people are going to be talking about Cam Newton this week. He's obviously the chalk for cash games, highest floor. I think he'll play. I don't think that we'll see him sit. So let's go to the other side here. Drew Brees has a great matchup. Carolina secondary really young, a lot of rookies, a lot of young guys on the secondary, and they're going into one of the hardest places to play in New Orleans. We know Breeze has these massive road home splits. I think 796 yards in 2 games at home and like 475 on the road in 2 games. So like we're already starting to see the splits. We've seen it last year. We've seen it for the last couple years. Drew Brees is really good in New Orleans, and he's just going to light the secondary up. And I really like playing him naked this weekend. I think Cooks is a good play, and I think Fleener's a sneaky tournament play. But I really like just going with, Breeze by himself here, getting those 3 to 4 touchdowns that he could throw in this game.
Yeah, the production gets spread out in New Orleans quite a bit, and it creates a situation where Drew Brees could have an awesome game, and none of the pass catchers could have an absolutely huge GPP winning type performance. So I can get behind this totally, pretty much any week where Drew Brees is playing at home. Grant, what's your take on naked Drew Brees?
I'm completely fine with it. I mean, the Saints have so many weapons all over the field, including Ingram, that it's completely fine to play him naked. And yeah, like Stevie said, his home road splits are huge, and Carolina's defense is not very good. Even against a Jameis Winston, who looked more like a 7th grader passing out there, everyone was still pretty wide open.
Yeah, we're not going to see the Saints come out and run the ball 10 times on the first drive. So, let's see this Saints team really attack the secondary. I think that's going to happen.
Yep. So, Grant, go ahead and give us something else here to go with Drew Brees. I mean, basically can go wherever we want with this since we have a quarterback who's not necessarily correlated with any of his receiving targets.
All right. Let's go with Stevie wants to pay up at running back this week. No, Carlos Hyde.
All right. Tell me about Carlos Hyde, man. The 49ers are going to be starting a new quarterback this week. I imagine with the Bills defense, they're going to have to rely on the run quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they have a QB that can run, which will probably take some of the pressure off Hyde a little bit because they're going to have to be watching Kaepernick. They're 21st against the run. Buffalo's 21st against the run this season, and Hyde is basically matchup proof regardless. He has been putting up big numbers all season long. I think he's the 6th overall running back this year, or 5th. And he's a great running back on a not great team, and he continues to be under-owned. And with all the value down there at wide receiver this week, I think that he's not going to be that heavily drafted, or as heavily as he should be at least. So let's throw him in.
He's in. So, Stevie, it's up on you. Still got plenty of money to spend. Where do you think we can go next?
I think people are going to look at Brian Hoyer a lot this week. I think he's a trap. I think it's an awful game for him. I think Meredith is still a good play because Jacksonville does struggle underneath coverage. But I think Hoyer's just awful play this week. But I think Jordan Howard is the way to go. The run defense for Jacksonville is really bad. Their pass defense is really solid. The numbers are a little skewed because Rivers threw for 4 touchdowns against them on a East to West Coast game out in San Diego. So the numbers are skewed like Jacksonville's pass defense is bad. But technically, and we're looking at DVOA and we're getting into those numbers, their run defense is really bad. And I think Jordan Howard has shown that he's very capable of having big games, and he's getting the touches, and I think he's an excellent tournament play this weekend.
It's a phenomenal spot. I intend to have him on my chart of stacks with the Bears defense this week, actually, as the Jaguars are certainly a spot where they could give up some production to the defense as well. We don't have to necessarily do that here, but I do like Jordan Howard quite a bit. I think they're going to have to feed him to get this job done in Chicago at home. So I'm really loving the Jordan Howard pick. Yeah, go ahead and give us something else.
Let's go to the other side of the field and go with Allen Robinson this week. They just came off a bye. He's still up there in targets this year. And I think that this game's going to be a little bit heavier scoring because of the Jacksonville defense being terrible. And although the Chicago has a bend, don't break kind of defense, they're still not that great of a defense, and they're higher up ranked against wide receivers. So I don't think many people are going to be on him at all. He's a guy with huge amount of upside and a large amount of red zone targets. And he's going to be fairly under-owned. And I like having a little correlation with the Jordan Howard play.
Yeah, I like this too. I know I just mentioned that, pairing the Bears defense isn't a terrible idea on DraftKings with Jordan Howard, but just the same, we'll definitely have Allen Robinson exposure as well because the Bears just aren't a very good defense to say the least. And I want to have both sides of that. I don't want to go all in on a defense like the Bears. And you mentioned Allen Robinson, just a beast. He's going to be facing some cornerbacks who he can definitely get the best of. So I really like this pick as well. We're off to a great start here with this lineup. I'm absolutely loving it. Stevie, keep it going.
Yeah, I want to correlate Breeze, and I think Benjamin is too expensive this week. I think tight end is really weak. I think that paying up at tight end is going to be a way to attack the weak tight end position this week. And let's correlate him with some Greg Olsen here. We know we've seen the type of games that Greg Olsen can have. We expect this game to be high scoring. We don't have a total yet in Vegas, and I think that's really waiting on the news for Cam Newton, but I think you guys would agree this is probably going to be the highest total of the weekend.
Yep.
That's how I'm seeing it right now. I had to basically project the game myself earlier today, and I did put it at like 54 as a expected Vegas total. I don't know if it'll get that high, or maybe, who knows, it could even be higher with these two teams, but it's definitely going to be high. And Greg Olsen absolutely balled out this past week. I expect him to do it again against this terrible New Orleans secondary. Grant, we have 4,000 left per player. What can we do to save some money?
We can go real cheap and go at Brandon LaFell against New England this week. He had 11 targets this week. He got a boatload of points. He has 8 red zone targets on the year. And obviously, he's not going to be lining up against whoever that one guy is that ruined my Seahawks Super Bowl. So he's a great play this week, and he's so darn cheap. He's not a very good wide receiver, but also – if you want narrative street, he's facing his former team. So I think for 3,200, it's just an incredible spot this week for him.
He's extremely cheap, and he did show that he has some upside still in that offense with Dalton scoring the 2 garbage time touchdowns last week. Certainly perfect kind of a play for GPP if we're looking for some cheap upside and trying to save in a lineup so that we can squeeze some extra guys in to a lineup like this that started off, really spending some money but getting some great players in. Stevie, what's your take on Brandon LaFell?
I wish he didn't score 2 touchdowns last week. We've seen the targets kind of trend in the right direction. We expect Cincinnati to be trailing in this game. New England's going to put up points on everybody. Tom Brady's back. We've seen what Tom Brady can do with this 2 tight end set last week. Bennett, bold call last week. Just saying, finally got one right. Nice. I think that LaFell, he's a guy that I'm kind of on the fence. Like, I think that he's an excellent tournament play. We're building a tournament lineup, so he could easily bust, but he could easily get you 5x too. So I think that building him into this lineup, needing some value at wide receiver, I definitely think he's a guy we could look at. And I'm going to go cheap with a wide receiver as well, kind of free up some more cap for us. And Oakland is really bad against the number 2 wide receiver. They're giving up like 86 yards per game to the number 2 wide receiver this year. Chris Conley's targets continue to trend in the right direction, and I really like this matchup for him. We're seeing a Kansas City team. It's a division game. Kansas City has to win this game. Like, I know it's week 6, but a 2-2 team against a division matchup, and we didn't even mention that with Carolina. Like, they're up against the fence here as well. Like, these division games have a lot of meaning in a week 6 matchup. So I really like these games.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting take. There's a lot of people who like the measurables of Chris Conley. They think that at some point in time, if they can leverage his elite athletic skills properly in that offense, that he can have a big game. And I think that the Oakland secondary might be the spot to do it. So I'm not opposed to this move at all. Really saving with 2 wide receiver spots. This is going to be contrarian, I think, because I think if we're going to go cheap at wide receiver, they're going to go for guys like Meredith and some of the other values. So this is an interesting way to go with this lineup, and we've got some other more chalky options in there to kind of counterbalance that. So I think we're off on a really good start with this lineup. Wanted to see if we could fit one of my plays of the week in this lineup. I don't know if you guys are opposed to this or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I want to play Will Fuller. I think that if Vontae Davis plays, I don't think Vontae Davis is like an elite shutdown corner anymore, but he's definitely good enough to slow down the production of a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, and the rest of that Indianapolis secondary is terrible. I just think that this guy he's going to be great. He's got elite speed, and he can really get behind that secondary for a big play, and I'm certainly expecting to do that this weekend. Grant, what's your take on Will Fuller?
I have no problem with him. He's a huge big play guy. I mean, Osweiler looks like he picked the wrong sport, and so people are not going to be on him, but he can easily go off for 150 yards in any given game and just put up massive numbers. I don't think he's going to be that heavily owned, and he's still pretty far underpriced. And yeah, like you said, if Davis plays, then Hopkins is going to get less targets. So I love the play.
Plenty of room to spend up for a defense then, Stevie. Do you have any ideas on who we can use up here at the top?
Yeah, we're playing Hyde, so we can't play Buffalo. I think Buffalo's in an excellent spot. I don't love Hyde, but I get the reasoning behind Hyde. I like the Titans defense a lot this week. I think that, a home team, we're going to definitely build a lineup with DeMarco Murray. Probably my favorite play this weekend is DeMarco Murray. I think he's just an excellent play. And I'm going to be pairing him a lot with this defense. The Titans defense has been getting at the quarterback, and I like that. So getting at the quarterback, home, favored by 7.5. I think this is a good spot for the Titans D.
Ryan Tannehill was suffocated last week by the pass rush of the Titans. They control the game, keep it in their favor. They want to hold the ball for as long as possible. I think that they could do that against this Cleveland Brown team. So I certainly think the Titans are very much in play this weekend for 3,300 on DraftKings. We have about $500 left. Grant, do you think we should hang on to it or maybe try to shift some things around, or are we good with this lineup as it is?
This is a Millie Maker lineup. Leave it on the board.
It's on the board. It's going in the books, guys, and we're going on to the next lineup. Grant, you get to start this.
Real quick, the only thing that I could see to do, I like the LaFell play, but if you're not sold on him, you could go up to Kenny Britt. His targets are trending in the right direction. The matchups in Detroit, so it's a dome game, a lot of passing in this game. I like Britt there, but I like LaFell leaving some money on the table. Maybe Britt's a guy we can work into another lineup.
All right.
Yeah, I also don't mind Tavon Austin. We can't afford him with that lineup, of course, but when you talk about attacking the Detroit secondary, I think there's going to be some opportunity to do that with the Rams in a sneaky fashion for really cheap this weekend. I'm not going to go crazy with that, but it certainly is a good idea, and I like the Britt call, Stevie. All right, guys, so let's go on to the next lineup. Grant, it's up on you. Blank slate. What do you got for us?
And first time I actually want to play him this entire season, but Russell Wilson.
Yes.
There we go. Got Stevie's approval.
Yes.
I totally agree with this too.
This
by the way.
is a great play.
Oh gosh, now I feel so good right now. With Cam Newton and Drew Brees being the huge chalk because of what the type of game it is, there's going to be so much less ownership on Wilson. I think that Atlanta can hang with virtually any team. So going up against the Seattle defense, he's still going to put up numbers, but Seattle, even if he doesn't, Seattle forces the ball down everyone every single time, and they just want to run up the score. They didn't do too well the first few weeks, and their offense seems to be clicking. In addition to that, Wilson's finally healthy after coming off a bye week, and he's going up against the worst pass defense in the entire league. Plus, they don't have a rush, so he can do crazy things on his legs now that he's healthy. Fun fact right now, for QBR computation reasons or whatever, he is last in the league for contributions on his feet, I think, so far this season.
He's way too cheap as well, so it really just makes for great GPP roster construction, in my view. Stevie, you were excited about this. Do you have any other thoughts to add about Russell Wilson?
Yeah, put Jimmy Graham in this lineup. That's the correlation this week. Atlanta gets destroyed by tight ends. We didn't see it with Denver last week because they didn't have anybody healthy. Their starting tight end was out, Green. And we've seen before that they gave up 5 touchdowns in 4 weeks, and it was to Tampa, Oakland. They let Colby Fleener have a career game, obviously, and Carolina. Greg Olsen had a good game. Jimmy Graham is starting to get targets again. Russell Wilson and Jimmy Graham are on the same page, and I know you know that, Grant. Being a Seahawks fan, they look good together. This correlation is just too cheap. The upside here is 2 touchdown upside for this correlation, and Russell Wilson has 4 touchdown upside in this matchup.
Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. I mean, it's definitely one of the very best correlations of the week, and I don't really have much more to add to this. So, Grant, go ahead and give us something else for this lineup.
Oh, gosh, keep going. Oh, I didn't think this far ahead.
I got you. DeMarco Murray. Just go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
We're going a little different with our quarterback here with Russell Wilson, all these top quarterbacks. DeMarco Murray is the play this week. I don't care what anybody says. DeMarco Murray is the play this week.
DeMarco Murray's going to play every week.
Every week.
I'm throwing in the correlation with the Titans D just for now. We can change it later if we have to, but I just really think that correlation is very much in play as well. DeMarco Murray, if he continues to get the workload that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, they play that control style of offense. The Titans defense is going to be in a great spot.
Love that correlation.
Yep.
Grant, any additional time to think about what you want to do?
Yeah, I'm just going to do I've started the same two running backs in most of my lineups every single week. So I'm doing it again this week and throwing in LaShawn McCoy. He continues to be under-owned every single week, and he just hasn't gotten into the end zone too much, which I think last week he got stopped on the 1 yard line twice or 2 yard line twice. If he just barrels into the end zone for 2 touchdowns, which he's going to one day very, very soon, probably this week, he's going to put a massive amount of points. And he's still one of the best running backs in the league, and no one seems to know it. Also, he's going up against San Fran, who has a crazy high pace of play, obviously, with Chip Kelly. So he's going to be seeing plenty of carries throughout the course of the game. Plus, I see Buffalo being ahead and they're having to run the ball. So everything points to a huge game for Shady this weekend.
They got mashed by David Johnson last week. And if Buffalo's not a popular team, guys, you might not be watching the games out there. You might only be seeing some of the highlights, but watch LaShawn McCoy. He looks electric. He looks amazing. He's back. Use LaShawn McCoy. He's too cheap at 6,900, and I love this play as well. Stevie, you're up.
Let's go Kenny Britt. We kind of talked about him there, getting rid of that last lineup. We went a little chalky here at running back. So let's go with a guy I think will be overlooked this week. He has 4 catches in every game this year and 75 yards in 3 of those 4 or 5 games. So, he's getting catches, he's getting yards. The touchdown positive regression is going to happen eventually, right? This guy's averaging 11.5 DraftKings points over 5 weeks. You give him 1 touchdown, then we're starting to see that 5X that we love for tournaments. And I just don't see anybody playing Kenny Britt. Right when we started to talk about him, chat just started having a fit that we were talking about Kenny Britt. But the more I look at this matchup, and I'd be interested to see who covers him, if he's going to be with Slay or not. But I think Britt's going to be a good play this week.
Yeah, like I said, if you think that Darius Slay is going to lock down Kenny Britt, you can go with one of the other guys. You can go with Austin or with Brian Quick. I mean, I'm not going to endorse Brian Quick on the show, but I am definitely going to, put my name in the hat here for Tavon Austin if you think that Britt's going to get locked down. But the bottom line, if you don't think that's the case, he's a great play. I mean, the Detroit pass defense is susceptible to these taller wide receivers like Britt, and I think that he can score a couple of touchdowns pretty easily. So I don't see why chat would be having a conniption about this if they're truly looking for a contrarian GPP play to help them fit some of the chalk they want to play, like Murray, McCoy, Wilson, and Grant. So I'm on board with this, Stevie. Grant, what do you got?
I love this play. I might have a Britt, Tavon Austin, Case Keenum lineup this week, which is just insane. But
I don't hate it. I don't hate that idea. As much as bad as that sounds, this Detroit secondary, and Detroit can't get any pressure outside of Hyder. I actually don't hate Keenum this week. His job's on the line. A lot of news about, wanting him to be on the bench. So could be sneaky. Could be really sneaky.
Well, he's going to come in at 0.1% ownership. So I think that qualifies as sneaky. But let's throw another cheap wide receiver in here right now. Get a little correlation going and go Torrey Smith. Just came out today that Kaepernick's going to be starting, I believe. Am I right there? Hope I'm right there.
You are right.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, he's got an arm. I think Buffalo's going to be ahead. And if they are, we have the correlation of Shady running the ball and Smith taking the ball deep. I mean, Kaepernick's got an arm. All the targets so far this season have gone to Curley because Gabbert just seems to love him. But if Kaepernick does things a little bit different, he wants a big play guy if they're going to have to come back. And Smith is that guy. So he's crazy cheap and going to be very, very low owned, and we have the correlation play. It's a good spot, I think.
I'm going to defer to you for this Torrey Smith analysis, Stevie. I haven't really thought of him too much, and I can't really say anything good or bad about him. So what do you think about Torrey Smith?
I think Buffalo's going to destroy the 49ers this week. I get it. I won't watch this game. I won't. Obviously, I'm not a fan of what Kaepernick's doing. That's for another day. But I get it. Torrey Smith could definitely score on a deep ball, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, if you want, we could go Curly instead.
No. Let's go. Let's go for that. We're building a millionaire maker team. We're wanting that 1% owned guy. We went a little chalky at running back, and then I'm going to tell you to put Bell in the flex to get some exposure to the Pittsburgh offense since we're going so cheap here. We're going super chalk with the 3 chalk running backs. Let's throw in this Torrey Smith play and, at 1% own that. He might even be under 1%.
Yeah.
What are we going to need from Smith to make that work out? Like maybe like a 60-yard touchdown.
If you get 12 points, 4x, and your running backs do what they're supposed to, like.
Yeah, but if we're trying to win the Millionaire Maker, we probably need him to get 100, right?
I don't know about that. I mean, he could do it though. He very easily could do it on 2 catches.
Well, I just want to talk it through. I think this could work out. I'm not a big fan of Torrey Smith for the most part, but again, we're building a Millionaire Maker lineup, so mixing in a guy like Torrey Smith, if you're really looking for the sub 1% play, because I think he's going to be sub 1%. Definitely one way you could go.
The only other thing that we could do is we could throw like a Meredith in there, and then like correlate with Golden Tate. Nobody's playing Golden Tate anymore. People have given up on him. Like, I've kind of given up on him, but I'm still gonna get exposure to Golden Tate just because like it could happen. They were running reverses with him last week. They're trying to get him involved in the offense, and just looking when we had Torrey Smith in there and looking at the guys that were in that price range, I think that going with 2 of these like 4K guys might be a better play.
Yeah, I think the way that I would build my roster is if I was going to make a play like a Torrey Smith or a Kenny Britt, I'd probably have one or the other and not both. Golden Tate's not exactly safe at this point, but at least he's got the pedigree. So I'm more in favor of this than I would be of Torrey Smith. Grant, what do you think about that?
I mean, I was going to go with Mike Wallace to the mix with Torrey Smith. You got 2 guys with, like, they can get the deep ball very, very often. And Torrey Smith, I don't think he's that bad. Like, he had 10 targets 3 weeks ago. So it's not like they're not going to throw in the ball. I think Kaepernick would be a better guy to pair him with. So, but this one's fine with me. I hate Golden Tate. I do not like him at all this season, but that's probably why he's a good GPP play. I just got killed that 1 reception, 1 yard week because I had a lot of him and very little Jones.
It's not like he's never going to have a good game again.
The thing that I'm looking at, like we have a Kenny Britt in this lineup, like we could correlate him with Tate, and we don't even have to have Meredith there, but like we're getting correlation with a Detroit receiver. Like I like correlation, and like we have a lot of correlation going in this lineup, so I don't hate it. Like I feel like Meredith or Jordan Howard's going to be on just about every team. Like I don't know if I'll play them together, but I'm going to have a lot of each one of those guys. So
I want to hear your thoughts. What about Royal instead of Meredith?
I just think Meredith's a better football player. Like Meredith is a great talent. He's just young. So Eddie Royal's banged up. He's old. Hoyer really locked in on Meredith in that game. And I think that in a game where Hoyer could be playing for the starting job, like, a lot of talk about Cutler coming back. Like, I just think that Meredith's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, Royal still had 10 targets last week while being banged up, and he did great the week before. So, I mean, it's mostly – I don't think he's going to do better than Meredith. I just think from a ownership percentage it is because, I mean, we got 3 chalky running backs and a fairly chalky quarterback, but I'm fine either way. I mean, with Tate in there, and Britt, we have a lot of people or a few people that have very little ownership. So I'm fine with this.
I love the pivot from Royal, from Meredith to Royal in tournaments. I think that's the way people are going to go for their pivots in tournaments, and I have no issue with it.
All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for this lineup here. So let's jump into a third lineup for the day. Stevie, any takes on where to start this one?
I'm pulling it back up. Sorry. What are your guys' thoughts? Like, looking at like the top quarterbacks like Brady, Ben, these big guys that have these massive upsides. Like, it's pretty easy to fit them into your lineups. Cam Newton, like, those guys, it's easy to fit them in. Like, what's your thoughts on those guys in tournaments? Because we obviously seen it last week. Like, they have 30-point upside every week.
I absolutely love Ben every single week. And the fact that the ownership's going to be more on Breeze and Newton this week makes him a lot better tournament play. And Brady, I love it's so hard to figure out the correlation pick for him on a week-to-week basis. I mean, he has so many options in that offense that I'd almost rather sit him in naked. Well, we could do Gronk. I'm fine with that.
So here's the thing. Ben Roethlisberger has Yeah, I'm not a big splits guy, but the splits for Roethlisberger on the road, they're just not that great. Miami's, not exactly a team to be feared at this point in time. But I just think that that's going to be more of a Le'Veon Bell game, and it's going to be Roethlisberger with another 4 or 5 touchdown performance. In my estimation, I don't know if I'm going to stay away from Ben Roethlisberger, but if you ask me about the top quarterbacks, I really like Tom Brady. And if you watched the game last week and you saw Gronkowski, Stevie, he kind of looks back to me. I'm interested in using him before people just really start piling on.
No, I don't hate Gronk this week. I think people are going to levitate the Bennett after the 3 touchdown week. So Gronk might even be lower owned. So I don't hate that. But if you're going Brady Gronk, I think you have to go AJ Green. Like, you're expecting this game to kind of shoot out. Like, Green should have a ton of targets in this game. Kind of getting a mini game stack here. Green, one of my top wide receivers this week. I think he has a big game.
Yeah, I like this correlation. I think because it's so expensive, it'll tend to go a bit under-owned because people are going to run out of options as far as value options are concerned. They may not be willing to dig as deep as we're about to here to try to find a way to make this work. So, again, I don't want to say that I'm absolutely saying go all in on Tom Brady, Gronkowski, but if you're asking about the top quarterbacks, my favorite of the bunch is Brady Gronk with the combination of, upside and modest ownership.
Yeah, I like Brady this week. I might even have like a Brady 2 tight end stack team on DraftKings this week. It's something that I played around with this morning, so I don't hate that idea. But yeah, let's jump on Gronk before everybody else does. I like that.
All right, Grant. So we got a correlation here with Brady, Gronk, and AJ Green. Not opposed to going back to the Steelers if you want to, but it's in your court. Whatever you want.
We spent a lot of money already. I'm going to go with a real cheap wide receiver that I like so far this week with Tyler Lockett. Atlanta's giving up the most big plays out of any team in the entire NFL right now. And Lockett's a huge big play wide receiver. He hasn't done much this season, but Russell Wilson's been injured. And for the most part, they were playing terribly or they were blowing out a team. It was one of those two almost every single time. And he's 3,600. For as good as a wide receiver he is, that's a ridiculous price. He's got huge big playability, and if we wanted to, we could lock in the Seattle defense for a correlation play in case he gets a punt return for a touchdown.
I would love Lockett so much if he was getting the snaps. He's just not this year so far, but because of his big play upside, he's certainly in play for GPP, especially with that double dip. Stevie, what's your take on Tyler Lockett?
Okay. Yeah, like you said, I'm worried about the snaps. And I don't know. I get it. Like, we're trying to find that one wide receiver that has that just a big play, like Sammy Coates last week. You just need that one big play. Sammy Coates had that second touchdown, but before that, he was still having the game that you needed out of that price range.
All right, Grant. So we got Lockett and Seahawks put in for you here. Stevie, if you had a way that you'd like to take this lineup a little bit differently, where would you go?
We can leave those in for now. We can always tinker with it at the end. And this is the cheapest and last time we'll see this guy this price. I think that we jump on him before everybody else, just kind of like the Gronk thing. And Jamal Charles, he's just too cheap. Like, Jamal Charles is going to be in so many tournament lineups. He's going to be involved. It's Andy Reid off of a bye week. Like, it's going to be a Jamal Charles week. I'm so excited that I think Jamal Charles is going to be low owned this week. He's going to be one of my tournament plays that I'm just going to be extremely high on this week.
Can you imagine if he gets a full workload and there's not really broadcast and you have him in all the lineups? How great that will be.
I don't think he's going to get a full. I think it's going to be like 70-30. I think that's a realistic expectation.
That's kind of like what NFL running backs get these days, right? I mean, if he was in there for 55% of the snaps, 60% of the snaps, and he's still Jamal Charles of old, I mean, you're getting a great value at 5,100 if you ask me. Grant, what's your take on Jamal Charles?
He's Jamal Charles, and the Oakland defense is the Oakland defense. So that's basically – he's an incredible running back. And, I mean, the health issues are going to keep some people off of him, and so are the workload issues. But he's still Jamal Charles, and he's 5K, which I don't think I've ever seen that before. And so it's against one of the worst defenses in the league. There's a good chance that Kansas City could be up and they could be running the ball, although they might not be running with him if they are up by that much. But it's huge upside. low price, it's a perfect situation for him.
Now, the chat is talking about, and I seen this, I think yesterday as well. Have you seen that, Tyler Lockett's playing with a torn PCL? It's just, I think Doug Baldwin said that. So I'm kind of interested to get your thoughts on, I know Atlanta has a really solid run defense, but they struggle with catching backs. What is your thoughts on correlating the Seattle defense with Michael, or just even taking out the Seattle defense? What's your thoughts on Michael this week, Grant?
I love Michael this week. It's against Atlanta. They're a terrible defense. I could see Seattle can put up a huge amount of points very quickly in any given scenario. And Christine Michael's been playing great this season. And, yeah, also on top of that, Atlanta, let me look at the stats. But, yeah, Atlanta gives up a lot of touches out of the back.
Yeah, 73 yards to receiving yards to running backs a week. And Michael, we know he can catch the ball in the backfield. I'm not hating on your Lockett play, but with like the uncertainty and like how Matt Ryan's playing this week, like that correlation could definitely hit. But I like Michael more than I like that other combination.
Yeah, that's fine with me. And also, I think Atlanta's 22% of the targets against Atlanta are going to the running back so far this season, which is, I think, the third highest in the league or fourth highest in the league besides Seattle, Kansas City, and Washington. If you want to go to something crazy and you see Michael doing a lot, Atlanta throws a lot out of the backfield to Coleman and Freeman, and no one's really going to be on him. And I think they're respectively the 8th and 9th ranked running backs in the league. We could throw Coleman in this lineup against a great Seattle defense. It's great against the run, but they give up a lot of targets to the to the running back. It's a little crazy, but what are your thoughts on that?
No, I like it. Like, we've seen it with Denver last week. Coleman can be a game changer out of the backfield. And people just don't like playing Coleman or Freeman. But if you look at their price on DraftKings, it frees up a lot. And we talked about, how all these, top running backs have just such great matchups. Michael at 6,800, I'm expecting him to be less than 10%, maybe even less than 5% here. And Coleman, he's not going to see any type of ownership. So we've taken a lineup, and we can go anywhere with this lineup because we're going to have so many low-owned guys.
Yep, the only problem that we have with this lineup right now is we don't have a lot to spend per position remaining. So, it might behoove us to maybe try to get a little bit more value someplace. Where do you think we can do that, Stevie?
I'm looking at cheap defenses, and I absolutely hate defense this week. I think it's just an awful position. We talked about some of these cheap wide receivers. We could plug in those guys. We could even talk about playing like a naked Brady. I know you like Gronk a lot, but he is expensive. That would free it up.
Just do that because we need some money.
What are your thoughts on defenses? Like, I don't see a lot of upside in defense this week. Is it a week just to like completely punt with a defense and just kind of hope they don't get smashed? Or what's your thoughts?
My top four favorite, or three of my top four favorite defenses are actually three of the top four cheapest defenses this week. I like Colts, Bears, and 49ers. I think they could do something in all their matchups. And defense is just so much of a crapshoot, and there's no real great ones that you might as well just keep an extra $1,400 and pay down for the Colts, Bears, or Niners.
Don't pay for the 49ers. McCoy's going to destroy them. Just saying.
I think the Bears at 2,300 against Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars is probably the best bet of that crew. I think playing at home with Vic Fangio as their coordinator probably gives them the best chance of anyone who's cheap down here to have one of those volatile performances we can, find from our defenses every now and then. Steve, what's your take on the Bears?
Bortles is always good for a couple interceptions. That's my take. They hate TJ Yeldon in the red zone. So, that's my take. You got some upside because of the interception upside there. So I don't hate it. I think that we see a different type of approach from Chicago this week. I think we see Jordan Howard get even more involved this week.
And where can we go at tight end?
Jesse James. He got 9 targets this weekend. He's taking over Heath Miller's role very nicely so far this season. He's getting touchdowns. He has 5 red zone targets so far this year. And he's finally starting to see just a lot of targets in the actual offense. And so he's only $3K this week. It's going to be a high-scoring game. And Miami's not a good defense, and they're not very good against the tight end. So I really like him this week if we're going really cheap at a tight end, and I don't think he's going to be as heavily owned as a lot of the other tight ends. So I think he's a great tournament play this week with potential for 15-point upside.
Okay, Stevie, so we have 58.50 left per player here with Jesse James in our lineup. Where do you think we can go at wide out to finish this thing up?
It depends if we want to go balanced here, if we want to take some shots. You already mentioned Mike Wallace a little while ago. Steve Smith likely going to miss this game. It could be a decent matchup for Mike Wallace. I actually like Pitta as well at tight end. You mentioned Jesse James. I like Jesse James too. I think he's a good tournament tight end. But what about Mike Wallace and seeing what that frees us up?
It's going to give us 6,500 remaining.
Yeah,
65.
Yeah, man. It puts us in a weird price range.
Can I submit to you one Jeremy Maclin for consideration? Maclin is going to be faced with an Oakland secondary that, despite having some talented players individually, doesn't seem to be able to stop the pass very well, and he gets a boatload of targets from Alex Smith. Any interest in Jeremy Maclin, guys?
Yep.
You say he gets a boatload of targets, and just watching that game against Pittsburgh with so much exposure to Maclin and being so tilted, and I'll probably go back to the well here. I like this game, but we have Jamal Charles in this lineup too. Do you really want to? I think you're limiting your upside if you take both those guys.
No, that's a fair point, and that's why we have to take him out. A couple of other guys in this range, Baldwin and Snead, have a chance. I mentioned Will Fuller. Any of these guys have interest to you, Grant?
Yeah, but I mean, we could also leave 500 on the board and take Cobb. I mean, he finally had a good game this week. He's getting the targets from Rodgers finally, and Green Bay is going up against Dallas. The only problem I have with it, though, is that Dallas doesn't run a whole lot of plays throughout the course of the game. They run the ball a lot, and their pace of play is just slow. So you don't know how often it's going to be in Green Bay's hands. But, I mean, I'm fine with Snead. I'm fine with Baldwin. I'm fine with Cobb.
All right, I have another idea I'll throw at you guys. If we take Mike Wallace out, you mentioned Eddie Royal as a pivot off of Meredith, and then we can get Brandon Cooks, who has that big game potential at home against Carolina. I think that has a ton of upside if Eddie Royal has that pivot game that we were kind of talking about.
Yeah, I don't mind Cooks, but I mean, we have enough for Hilton if you want the guy that's doing better than anyone else right now that's getting a ton of targets.
Love T.Y. Love T.Y.
Yes.
How do you argue with a guy that's getting 11 targets a game?
Yeah, let's throw T.Y. in instead, and that's a beautiful looking lineup right there.
Yeah, I can picture Brandon Cooks being just slightly more popular than T.Y. Hilton. It's not going to be a big edge, but it'll certainly be something that we can hang our hats on here as a reason to go Hilton. So another pretty good lineup here. We got Naked Brady in this lineup, which is interesting. I think that with all the targets out there, that actually makes a decent amount of sense. Any thoughts on this before we go to the next lineup, guys?
Yeah, I'm good with this lineup. I like what we did there at the end, getting T.Y. Hilton in.
I just think I'm in love right now, so I'm speechless.
Grant, we know that you are a connoisseur of love and life. So if you're in love with it, I'm putting it in.
Can we attempt to build? I don't even know if this is possible. I haven't tried to do it yet. Can we attempt to build a New Orleans Carolina game stack lineup?
We certainly can.
I think that's something that we need to talk about. We built a lot of lineups. We built 3 lineups. Is it possible to do it? With Cooks and these guys, because this game just has so much potential as a shootout.
Yeah, we actually owe it to the people watching to talk about this game in depth because of the potential here. I think that Cam Newton's questionable status, I assume he's going to play. Guys, anyone have any update on Newton that I have not yet seen today?
He was riding a scooter this week without a helmet.
Oh, fantastic.
I know he did some limited stuff on Monday. Obviously, the team was playing on Monday night. Seeing a note here at 1:58 p.m. today that he's expected to clear concussion protocol on Wednesday, which is today.
Yeah.
So are we more of a fan of paying up a couple of extra bucks for Cam Newton, or do you guys want to start this correlation with Drew Brees?
I'm good with either.
No, we built a Breeze lineup. Let's do a Newton lineup here and see what happens.
Okay, so the decision that's going to have to be made with Newton lineups, if you're going to be pairing him with a pass catcher, is whether to go with the tall outside receiver in Benjamin, who can exploit the coverage of the weak New Orleans Saints secondary, or we could go with a guy like Greg Olsen, who's just been running wild throughout the middle of the field, running that corner route to the sideline and crushing people left and right. Really had a huge game against Tampa Bay. Where can we go with this, guys? I mean, either one of these options is going to be great.
I think they're both good. I don't think you can actually make a lineup with both of them. I just tried to do it, and it was really put you at like 3,300 per position. With the Saints guys, I think that in a must-win game with Carolina, I think we can call this a must-win game. Like they're up against the wall here, 1-4. It's a division game. It's a must-win game for them. Like, you have to think that Newton's going to go to his number one. He's going to trust his guy, right? Like, this is a Greg Olsen, Cam Newton type game.
So me, on my Monday podcast with Jam, we were looking at last week, and New Orleans really does not give up many points to the number one wide receiver. And I looked through it, targets to the number one wide receiver, like in terms of targets to all wide receivers, the lowest percentage is Atlanta, I think, or Pittsburgh. But New Orleans is down near the bottom in terms of like giving up targets to the number one wide receiver. And they kind of have a strange little thing going on where they're still not very good pass defense, but they're not really giving up many points to the number one wide receiver. I think Julio did nothing against New Orleans when they played together. So I really don't like Benjamin at all this week. And so I'm happy that we have Greg Olsen. And I don't think I'll have more than maybe one share of Benjamin throughout the entire course of my lineup construction.
All right, so it's going to be Greg Olsen then, Grant. We got him locked into the lineup here, paired with Cam Newton. With those two guys being fairly expensive, it doesn't leave us a lot of space to maneuver. Is there some place where we can get some value that we haven't yet talked about that you really think we should share with everybody?
If you want some value, let's see. Let's look over it. Do you see any cheap running backs this week? I know it's kind of tough right now to find them, but I mean, the only one I really see that's anywhere close to cheap is James White, unless you want to go Duke Johnson or Richard. But James White is going to get a bunch of targets. He's in a Brady offense again, and he actually has decent upside with his pass catching ability and being able to break one off. We saw what Dion Lewis did last year in the lineup when he was there, and it's just the way that the New England offense runs that a pass-catching running back can put up huge points in 1 week.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys down here that fit that pass-catching role that you can look at. Darren Sproles has been involved in that offense for Philadelphia. It's a GPP-only type of a play. That could work out if he gets in the box a couple of times. You've got Giovanni Bernard. If Jeremy Hill continues to be limited or out, could see a large percentage of the work in Cincinnati with a pass-catching role. And, of course, Theo Riddick, your guy, Stevie, always going to be in play up at 5,300. So out of those four guys, is White the play because he's the cheapest, or is there someone else we think we should go with?
Yeah, White last week didn't score a touchdown and put up almost 13 points. I think it was 12.9. So he finds the end zone. You get the 4, almost 5x there. So I like White here. I think he might be used even more this week, than what a lot of people are expecting. I'm gonna stick to trying to build this Carolina New Orleans game stack, and I'm gonna say let's put in Cooks and let's put in Fleener. We'll go 2 tight ends. That's gonna free up a lot for us at flex. He's only like 3,500. Breeze 376 yards against Atlanta at home this year, 423 yards against Oakland at home this season. Not saying Carolina's defense is that bad, but they haven't shown anything to be that good either. So there's 350-yard potential here. So playing 2 catchers from one side here is not a bad correlation play.
Especially since Fleener, apparently the light is going on for him, right? Like all of a sudden he gets it. We'll see about that. But for 3,500, he's definitely in the right place at the right time as far as the Saint offense is concerned at home, which you've restarted with football. So Grant, we have 49.25 left per player. We've got a big-time stack of that Carolina-New Orleans game. We got James White in there catching passes for Mr. Tom Brady. What can we do?
I mean, I kind of want to throw Ingram in, but that would be way, way too much from one game. So we talked about Mike Wallace earlier. Let's throw him in. He's not that expensive. He's right around the price range we need. And he got, 11 targets last week. He's a huge deep ball threat. Flacco's actually playing fairly well this week. I'm not that high on the Giants defense this year. And he has potential for a 25, 30-point game at any given time with Flacco's big arm. So I really like the play this week, and if the targets are there, which they look like they're going to be, especially if Steve Smith is out, he's an incredible play.
Fired their offensive coordinator this week, did the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Flacco absolutely livid about the fact that he's dinking and dunking all the way around, not using that big arm of his to fire it down the field as he likes to do. And I think that Mike Wallace, if he gets behind that defense, could very well be in line for a big play, as you mentioned. Have to stay tuned to his stats, but I think he should be good to go. Stevie, what else you got here?
We're going to need a cheap wide receiver because I'm going to go McCoy with Buffalo's defense. I'm going to correlate that. We have the New Orleans game stack. Let's go with my favorite running back defense correlation this week. And you're going to see who's at this price tag, who you've mentioned a couple of times already on the show, Chris.
Yeah, I'm with you here because, look, I mean, do what you want about Tavon Austin. First, let's go back to the Bills defense first, and because they're just in a fantastic spot against a team that runs a lot of plays and is going to have Colin Kaepernick as their quarterback. With Rex Ryan calling the plays on defense, it's not exactly the spot you want to be in if you're coming back from your first, game in a year, is seeing Rex Ryan and the complexity that he can throw at you. He's not going to throw vanilla stuff at you. It's not necessarily going to be the blitz, but it is going to be complex. It's going to be something that's going to try to confuse you. And I just don't think Colin Kaepernick's in a real good spot here. Going to Buffalo across the country, it's just a Bills McCoy spot all day long. I love it. Talk about Tavon Austin though, Stevie.
It's yours, man. I'm letting you own the Tavon Austin call. Detroit's defense is bad. We're going to attack them somewhere. Gurley doesn't look good. The offensive line looks bad. I think they focus in on trying to stop Gurley. And Tavon Austin or Britt or Quick, one of these guys is going to have a big game. And let's not forget Tavon Austin always has that punt, return type upside as well. So, you're gonna take shots. We took a shot with Britt. Let's take a shot with Austin in this lineup. Even in Quick's another guy you can throw into a tournament lineup. One of these guys is gonna find the end zone this week.
How many guys can you roster for 3,900 that gets 10 targets and gets designed run plays called for him? And not just run gimmick gadget plays. They line him up in the backfield sometimes and hand it off to him like a running back. They could do that in the red zone. They design plays for him, to flare out in the red zone. I don't think the Rams offense is good. I don't think anyone's going to dispute the fact that Tavon Austin's a risky play, not to be trusted, not to be invested in super heavily. But for 3,900, if we're trying to complete a lineup like this where we're stacking a high total game and we need someone who can get us to the top of the leaderboard if he has one of his premier performances, I think Tavon Austin's certainly in a spot where he could do that. I don't want to make it sound like I'm the Tavon Austin guy, but it can happen, and I don't think it's a bad call for a GPP.
I don't think he's a risky play. He's getting targets in a full-point PPR format like DK. He's going to get 5 points just from targets alone every single week pretty much, and he's going to get some yards. He's not that risky of a play going up against that terrible of a defense.
Yeah, so it's got the ceiling, and that's the bottom line. All right, so I think that's going to do it for our lineups here today, guys. Let's pop off here, grab some bold calls, and call it a day.
Ooh, didn't think through this one at all.
That's nothing new. Yeah, I'll start. I don't care. I'm 1 for 5 now. I finally got the Mike Martellus Bennett top 3 tight end last week. So I'm gonna go. I don't know if this is really bold, but I'm gonna say DeMarco Murray is the highest scoring running back this week. He's gonna beat Bell. He's gonna beat all these guys. DeMarco Murray is the highest scoring guy.
Yeah, I don't think that's super bold, but I think it's definitely worth, when you say someone's going to be the top scoring guy, I mean, you're always going out on a limb with that particular kind of a take. I mean, there's lots of good running backs. We talked about McCoy. We talked about some other guys. I can definitely see that being a little bit bold. Grant, what's your take on a bold call this week?
I'm going to go with Tyrod Taylor, 23 points this week. He's going to have a lot of plays, and he's going to have a lot of rushing yards, I think, this week, and he's going to put up a lot of points. So 23 points. Is that bold?
I think that's pretty bold. And, I think going with Tyrod Taylor the way he's played this year is not particularly safe at all. My bold call, I'm going back to the well one more time. I love Will Fuller this week, and I'm saying that Will Fuller is on the winning Millionaire Maker roster this weekend.
No,
So
I like that call
Right.
on Fuller for sure.
that's going to do it for us today, guys, though. Be sure to stick around and see the other shows that are going to be on Roto Grinders the rest of the day. I believe we have some hockey content. We have some NFL shows coming up later tonight. And we were certainly going to be pumping out the content for everyone to watch here on rotogrinders.com. So that's going to do it for us here today, guys. Any final thoughts here, Stevie?
No, just really good week as we were able to build so many lineups because there's a lot of options. I would recommend trying to narrow down your pool this week because I feel like there are so many good plays.
All right, Grant. Well, thanks for joining us today. That's going to do it for the GPP lineup build show. We'll talk to you later.